Hi everyone, nice to see you all. I'm really excited to stand here. And I understand that I'm your last stand before you and the lunch break, but I really appreciate your time and I suppose I will be able to reward you with something valuable. At least I think so. So let me spill a couple of words about me first. Well, my name is Sergey Nazarov and I'm a Chief Operating Officer at Perfect Quality Hosting, or PQ Hosting, which is a more common name around the market. And today I'm going to tell you a lot of things about hosting providers. Well, as for me, I have a degree in economics, and I worked as a project manager for a construction company for 3 years. And now I have a little less than a decade of experience in hosting market. And as you can see, it's quite easy to access this field, even if you have a total unrelated experience. However, if we talk about related jobs, I worked for an IT company that develops software for IT management infrastructure and ended up being responsible for all hosting provider clients of that company. Well, and here I am now. So the title of this presentation is Hosting Provider from Local to Global Business. And what I will try to do today is to give you an idea on how to build your own hosting company based on the history of ours and which difficulties you will face during this journey and how you can deal with them based on the mistakes and decisions that we made during our journey. And here is a little spoiler. PQ Hosting is a global hosting providing company. We have 42 locations worldwide, and the number keeps growing. And we have more than 100,000 active customers on a monthly basis. So I've been saying this word hosting for quite some time, but what does it really mean? Of course, most of you already know that, but for the ones who don't, or maybe some viewers who were not able to visit this wonderful event, and maybe will watch this video in the recording, hosting refers to a service that is being provided to individuals or organizations to make their content accessible via the internet connection. And yeah, sorry, a bit nervous, so yeah. Basically, hosting provides IaaS, infrastructure as a service. By that I mean like servers, storages, and internet connection. And to put it simply, being a hosting provider is pretty much like being a real estate agent. Imagine if a server is a high-rise residential building, and each apartment in that building is a virtual private server. And each apartment has its own address, an IP address, which allows you to find your easy way to the desired content. Renting an apartment provides you with an opportunity to furnish it as you wish. By that I mean placing a website or any online project and online storages, etc. And renting out as many apartments or the whole buildings at once is your main goal as a hosting provider. I really like this analogy because just like in the real estate, the demand for hosting grows immensely each year. And to prove my point, here are some numbers. So in 2023, the overall amount of internet users reached 5.25 billion users, and the monthly data traffic was around 290 exabytes. For your understanding, 1 exabyte is 1 billion gigabytes. And the overall data in the internet reached around 120 zettabytes, where 1 zettabyte is already 1 trillion gigabytes. By 2030, these numbers are expected to grow. The overall amount of users will reach up to 7 billion. The monthly data traffic will reach 1 zettabyte, and the overall data in the internet will reach 220 zettabytes. And by 2040, this amount should grow as well, considering the average growth of the population. The overall amount of users will be between 8 and 9 billion. The monthly data traffic will reach up to 10 zettabytes. And the overall data in the internet can easily exceed 500 zettabytes. Of course, it's just some rough figures, but it gives you an understanding on the overall trend on the market and what an opportunity you have right now to join this field and become a hosting provider. And that's exactly what we thought when we started our business. Not only that, but personal experience of our CEO led to the creation of the company, and he started his way as a web developer, and it allowed him to hone his skills and gather valuable information to start this business. And during that time, he understood that the market strives not just for hosting, but for a really high quality hosting. And well, our CEO thought that he will be the one who will make this dream come true. And we knew that placing an equipment into the garage, and starting your hosting business won't make us any sort of high quality, neither it will make us any different from any other beginning hosting providing company. So we thought that we have to study the basics of hosting and to understand its very core, because, well, it allowed us to basically come up with the following scheme, a pretty easy scheme that allows you to understand the overall idea of hosting. As you may see, if a client wants to place his content online and make it available to his end customers, he has to go to the hosting company. And the hosting provider, if he wants to provide some services, has to rent some spaces in the data center to place his equipment and gather some internet from an internet provider, obviously. But you can see in this scheme, there are some implementations between the client and the hosting. And it says software. Basically, software determines which services are going to be available to a customer. And I would like to highlight, I guess, 4 main of them. The first one is shared hosting. Basically, what it means when you have a physical server and decide to, well, split its capacities between all other users, it's quite cheap, right? But it has its flaws. If one of the users of this service will use the full capacity of a server, then the others will not be able even to access their data. So it leads to a second option to use a VPS hosting, virtual private server. And what it means when you split the physical capacity of your server into several virtual private servers, and each comes with its own dedicated resources. It's a more reliable way. Of course, it goes a little bit more expensive. However, there is an issue. You see, you don't usually use your VPS at its full power, so it leaves the hosting provider with some spare resources, and he sells them again. And it may lead to the same consequences just like in the shared hosting. If like all users of the VPS on the same server will use their VPSs at its full power at one period of time, then, well, everything will be down. There are some options to do, like doing the live migration, etc., but that's not the point. Then goes the dedicated server. Basically, you rent the whole server. It's only yours. You don't have to share it with anyone else. And of course, it's just a little bit more expensive. And then goes the cloud hosting. As you may recall from the previous day, it's even more expensive, but it's basically very similar to dedicated servers, but there are a lot of them. They're connected with one another using a software, and you can adjust the capacity that you need for your business right now. Yeah. So when we understood that we will place our equipment in the data center, so we learned the basics, and the next thing that we are going to need is to choose a software, well, basically to being able to sell our capacities and get the money from the clients, and the other software that will allow us to split the physical capacities of a server into virtual private servers and to manage these things easily. And here where I come in place, because I was the one who sold the addiction to the company, and I will explain in a moment why I say so. When you start your own project, you basically have 2 options when you need a software. It's to develop your own solution, and the second option is to use a ready-to-go solution. And both of those decisions, they come with their pros and cons. If we talk about developing your own software, of course, it's quite customizable, right? You can determine the way of development. It's quite flexible. It provides you with the competitive advantages because your software is unique and, well, it may have its own design. And, well, last but not least, you will own the code on the program. However, it has some cons. First of all, it's quite expensive because you will have to pay the salaries to all the developers. Then it's quite time-consuming because, well, when you start developing something and the time it takes to get a final product, it can take years. Then there is a maintenance, because you will need to update your software all the time, as you don't want to end up, in the article news that your software has some holes in it and the personal data of your customers leaked away. And then there is a chance that your software won't even work as you intended to do. So you have another option, is to use a ready-to-go solution, and it has some pros. It's cheaper, It's more reliable because it was tested by your competitors. It's fast to implement. And the maintenance of the software is basically not your problem. But it has some disadvantages. And first of all, the lack of customization. This software might not even have all the features that you might need. It also has some monthly, yearly fees, which tend to grow. I believe most of you recall the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom and what happened to the pricing. Then there's a problem of scalability. No one ever guarantees you that the software you're going to use will be able to support your growth. And there is another issue that you can face a possible software locked in, because when you grow, it becomes harder and harder for you to switch to another solution. Well, right now, in 2024, we face almost every single negative aspect of that decision. However, back then, and even now for the beginning companies, it's a great opportunity. Basically, it allowed us back in the time to sell our capacity really, really fast, so we had to purchase more and more equipment. And that's the next step. You see, when you start a business, you can rely on local shops or buying something online in eBay or Amazon, it's up to you. But when you need 20 or 30 servers, well, each week, you have to find a reliable distributor. And there are some important things you have to keep in mind when you are choosing the distributor. We had to switch 6 of them before we could really find the reliable one. And here you can see them. The first thing is the price. Being a hosting provider means you want to make the highest, well, revenue from each euro you spend. But hunting for the best price may lead you to the second point, quality. Believe me, it's not a good thing when you receive the server and it's broken or it will burn out in a couple of months. And the worst case we had is when we ordered a pack of 10 servers, but when they arrived on site and we opened the box, it was just piles of wood in there. So the third thing that's quite important is transportation, because in most of cases, when a distributor provides you with some equipment, he is also responsible for delivering this equipment to the site. And it's a very unpleasant experience when you paid a fortune and even made sure that it's not wood during the departure, but when the equipment arrived on site, it had its rails damaged, fence destroyed, and cables ripped apart. Though I guess those damages in some case can be fixed, and it didn't happen that much time. What happened a lot is the distributor not usually and not always has all required equipment in stock. And that's a real problem. You see, when you have to wait for several months before you can get your service delivered, it's quite bad when the demand on the equipment is so high. But once we were able to find a reliable distributor and we could focus on other questions, we started to receive more and more requests for new locations. And by opening a location, I mean finding a data center in a country and an internet provider there. Of course, you have other options how to boost your offer. You can resell services of another hosting provider, and it really allows you to boost your offer to the customers in the blink of an eye. However, you will only earn on the margin between what you pay to a hosting provider and what you get from your customers. Well, you have another option. You can rent several units from that hosting provider, and now, well, it's a little bit more profitable. However, we chose the third option, the most expensive one, to, well, make negotiations with data centers directly and deal with them. I won't say that is the most profitable one, but however, in the long term, it just gives you an opportunity to have less interaction between you and your equipment. And maybe if you stay in a data center for a long time, for at least 5 years and more, it might be slightly more profitable. And here are some tips on how to choose your data center. Because ideally, you want to choose once and stay there forever. Because, well, changing one data center to another, well, it leads to services downtime. You can have your equipment damaged during all the movings. So, yeah, you want to choose it once and for all. And the first thing you should pay close attention to is the tier of the data center. Of course, tier is quite a vague definition of quality. However, it provides you with the most important information. It provides you with information what uptime the data center guarantees that your services will work. The less downtime you have, the more time your services work, and the more money you get. Then goes the exterior and interior of the data center. And by that, I don't mean any fancy-looking, outskirts or some nice furnishing in the office part of the data center. By exterior, I basically mean the isolation of the data center from the random passers-by, preferably if it has a fence and 360 video cameras and the guards patrolling 24/7. And as for interior, I mean the dust protection, the ventilation, the cooling, and all that stuff. It's really important, and it would be great if you can visit the site before you rent place there. And if you cannot visit, ask for a video tour or some photos. It's really important, and sign any NDA the data center might ask you, but you need to check it. I will talk about it later. I guess the cornerstone of you being able to stay in a data center for a long period of time is the available space and energy provisioning of the data center. You see, you may sell a lot of services in one location and think that you found your gold mine and you want to expand forever, but though the market strives for more and more traffic each year, it still takes some time to build new capacities. The fourth thing is the internet connection. And the price for the internet varies over the world. For example, in Europe, you can get a 10G internet connection just for 600 euros. And in the same case, in Asia, you will have to spend 20,000 euros for the same volume. And you will have to make your own researches and negotiate a ton with the internet providers. And with grit teeth, you will sign those contracts knowing that somewhere in the world you will pay much, much less for the same amount. And in some cases, data centers provide the internet themselves, and in other cases, they are carrier neutral. And in case, if they are carrier neutral, you will have to make a direct agreement with an internet provider. It might be a little bit less expensive. However, it anchors you just to one option. And if a data center provides you with the internet, they have some options. They have a lot of internet providers present, and if you experience some difficulties, you may switch to another provider. So all those things that I've just described to you might not sound that hard, and you might start wondering why not everyone is a hosting provider then. So I guess I'll have to tell you about the dark side of hosting. You see, when you becoming more and more popular, and more people start using your services, there is a high risk that your service will be used with violations of law. And there are some problems with it. When your service is blocked, you can get your IP addresses added to the blacklist. And it will take some time before you can get those IP addresses out of the blacklists. And one less IP address means one less service you can sell. Moreover, you will get most certain police reports, and they will ask you to provide information about your clients and provide information, basically a backup copy of the virtual private server that they were using. And if you cannot provide that information, that most certainly you will be the one responsible for all the damages caused. So you want to make sure that you have a software that allows you to ask your customers to pass the QIC procedure. Basically, it means know your client, and the other software that will allow you to make a snapshot of the virtual private server. Just for your information, back in 2021, Italian authorities, they blocked an illegal streaming service, and it resulted in fines and penalties for hosting provider for around 10 million euros. The other thing is a DDoS. You will be almost constantly under a DDoS attack. Some of those attacks might be caused by the actions of your customers who caused, a rightful response. Others will be done by your competitors, or simply, a customer who was not satisfied with the response in the ticket. And if you don't have a serious DDoS protection, it might lead to a serious downtime in your services, and as I mentioned above, downtime means no money. We recently had a very severe DDoS attack, and we received about 1.5 terabit per second of traffic in each of our locations. And if you want to know more about how we managed with this attack, you may come and join our stand, and guys will gladly explain you all the details. But if you manage to find reliable partners, a reliable distributor, and the software that will manage your infrastructure, you will be rewarded. I really hope that, well, my presentation was kind of informative to you, and you will be able, at some point, build a hosting providing company and make it from a local small company, eventually an international global incorporation. Though I know that some of you will never, ever build a hosting providing company, but most of you will most certainly use the hosting services. And I would like to give you an insight on how to choose a hosting providing company properly. So first of all, you should pay close attention which services the hosting provider gives to you. Are they just VPSs or dedicated services as well? Because you want, as a client, so that the hosting provider can support your growth as well. Then goes the software, because you want an easy way to manage your services, as you don't want to rely on the support team all the time. Nonetheless, the support team should work 24/7, and the other important part is the equipment. You should pay close attention to the equipment that is being used by a hosting provider. Though it might not be brand new or the latest version, it still should be persistent and reliable. And then goes the internet connection. As you may recall, the price for the internet varies over the world, but the most important thing you should pay close attention to is the speed and traffic that the internet provider gives to you. Though the price may be very attractive, if the traffic is limited, at some point you will pay a lot of money for the traffic, preferably if the traffic is unlimited. Then pay close attention to the locations that are advised by a hosting provider, because the latency of your service is correlated with it. They're correlated with the distance between a hosting provider and your final customers. But all those things are very hard to obtain, and the last very important thing is the price. So if you're able to find a trustful hosting provider that match everything all the above, you will be thankful, I guess, to me. And I really want to thank you for your attention, and I wish you a great day.
Thank you for the lovely presentation. First, we have two great questions for you. So first, what kind of redundancy do you offer to VPS service? For example, if some data center burns and I have a VPS server there.
Okay, so basically, if at some point, although that never happened, and I believe that will never ever happen to us, I guess we can provide a live migration to another locations easily. Because we have so many of them, we can easily switch one country for another, and that's basically it.
Okay. Question. You're going to get a little bit heat from the audience. Did you design the slides yourself?
Well, I have a team of mine who did it, so yeah,
well,
I have to thank them.
Well, people are slightly upset you used the Andorra flag instead of the Moldovan flag.
Sorry about that. I was not the one responsible.
Well, now you know why I say that speakers have to build your own slides. So, tip for everyone, if you're making a presentation, better not outsource the presentation.
Thank you so much. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. And one last question. How often do you have hard disk failures at your data centers? What hard drives are you most reliable?
Well, we don't have failures that often because we really use the high-end equipment. So yeah, I cannot answer that question. We don't have that many downtimes and many hardware failures.
Okay, but which brand do you use?
Or you have to ask our CEO. He's the one responsible for that, and he knows all about that.
Okay, so they have a stand, so you can go and ask them about all of the tech part.